Hi, everybody. How are you? My name is Karen, and here we are with the fourth episode of Through the King, this podcast about the Mayan Tzolkin and the characters that you choose to analyze through their energies. How are you, Carol?
Hi Karen. Yes, I'm good. Quite excited again because the person we're looking at today had some really surprising synchronicities with the kin. Really interesting. So looking forward to diving into this.
Great, great. Well, before we start, we are going to put on the screen the characters for the next wave spell that is the Earth, and we would like for you to choose one of these. These are characters that born on the Earth wave spell. So put on comments the name of the character, and we the most voted we will be analyzing on the next episode. So we start with this one.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, the most voted was a crystal eagle. Like always, we like a lot because we discover a lot of synchronicities between his life and his career and the people around him. So we are talking about someone that developed planetary vision, like someone that can see a lot of things that the rest of the people maybe cannot, or maybe yes, but like a visionary. So we can talk about this ego, like someone that works with his service for others, and also that surprise a lot with his abilities.
Yeah, and also like literally in what was his speciality, these skills of like an eagle, it was as if he kind of knew everything that was happening around him in order to be able to, make the decisive move. Uh, and like almost like he maybe, had a drone up. Well, this was years ago, there weren't any drones, but like had a drone up in the sky and he could sort of see what was going on. Had really good sense of what was going on around him, really. Do you want to say what his skill was to help people?
Well, he was a footballer.
World
uh,
famous,
oh
but
yeah,
he
great.
but he was from nearer your geography this time. We're looking at somebody from
Exactly.
your part of the world.
Yeah, exactly. For somebody here in Argentina, they remember with a lot of love. And well, he passed away this life a couple of years ago, but he always live in the memory of the people, and not only for his ability, also because he always had a funny answer for everything.
Yeah, he was a real character, wasn't he? A strong character.
So we are going to reveal who is it. As you can imagine, the person that we are talking about is Diego Armando Maradona, born in October 30, 1960, in Argentina. And like we said, it's a blue crystal eagle that we are going to analyze about his oracle and his wave spell, because we found a lot of things interesting about him. So we are talking about somebody that, like we said, it's someone visionary that has this ability that can see through the things and anticipate movements to knew where he had to focus. And well, there's a lot of things in the history of Maradona that we found certain dates interesting in his career. If we talk about his tone, this power of vision that he had, not only used for his benefit, also he used to inspire other people and also collaborate, because the crystal tone it's for that, for share with other people and inspire and see how you can do things for other people.
Yeah, I mean, he was of all the footballers. I mean, he really was friends with everybody, wasn't he? Really? Well, okay, so everybody has their enemies, but
Yeah.
yeah, such a nice personality. It's to see, and he was in from the seed spell, so he's in the a galactic portal, isn't he? Whenever I see the seed like that, and it's like the football, being kicked into the air, it looks like.
Yes.
Um, and like you were saying, he was an inspiration for so many people. So that's very much like the seed energy, which was also his analog.
Well, when he appeared, that he really inspired a lot of young people to play football, and even people that well had maybe a hard reality. He born in a poor neighborhood, and but always had the support of his family. So um, his dream always was help his family and the people that was surround him. And I think that is the crystal tone talking.
And he had his of course his ancestry. I mean, he had quite a strong ancestry from his both sides, I think, of his parents. Was it
Yeah,
the Guarani ancestry? So, and that is, I mean, this to this day, that is a people who, although he didn't live in that society, but they really suffer very badly, don't they?
yeah,
They're very much displaced from their own lands, and so there's also that seems to be quite strong in him, whether it's however conscious it was and at what point of his life he recognized that. Um, yeah,
yeah, exactly. We will leave one article that Carol find about the history of football. That well, it's really interesting because it talks about the Guarani
years ago,
before.
the indigenous people, and they played this hundreds of years ago. Before it was the Jesuits who documented it.
Yeah,
And they had it in their documents that this game that they played and with a rubber ball made from the rubber came from the Palo Santo tree, and then they would pump air into it with a bamboo pump so they could play with their feet, which was quite different to a lot of other ball games where, for example, the Mayans played with more with the hips and so that also may explain why and how he was Maradona was so wonderful and this relationship with the ball, you know?
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
not only Maradona, because there are a lot of players that are born in South America that they are really good, and that explains why here also, um, why in all this part of the world the football lives this way.
Yeah.
No,
Because even if you
um,
don't have the Guarani ancestry, the place where you live has such an influence on your energy and everything.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah, for sure. And this is what Karen, can we go to can we jump now um to the
yeah,
date?
our discovery.
Yeah, the
Okay,
famous
okay, okay.
date.
Yeah, 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 of course, because, well, if we talk about images that are famous around the world, any fan of football will tell you that the video of Maradona running to the goal in the World Cup Mexico 1986, and his hand goal, the hand of God, that they call the hand of God. There are the most famous memories, maybe, or players that
Yeah. It was such that moment, that match had such an impact on the world. You can still feel it actually today. It was such a huge impact. The game against the semi-final against England. So it was the 22nd of June 1986 in Mexico, not long after the Malvinas Falklands War. So
exactly, yeah,
tensions are high. People, players are saying, no, 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 we're playing football. It wasn't quite that straightforward.
yeah,
And I mean, we talked about because so it was in Mexico, which was, oh right, the main thing. What day was the 22nd of June 1986?
well, it was his birthday king. I mean, it was Crystal Eagle, his own king. So
And that's
when we,
amazing. You just
yeah,
you can't make this up.
yeah,
You can't
uh,
make this up.
for us that we analyze the energies that day he did that goal with this energy available. It's
Well,
really
that I
amazing.
think because so you've got the two goals. There's the hand of God goal, as it's called,
Yeah,
which is funny. Which is funny because when you look at his oracle, the guide is the hand, so you just see the hand there going up and to hit the ball in. Um, and everybody, okay, so there's a lot of English players and people who are really upset about that because they say that was a fact, you shouldn't have won that, it shouldn't have been this, it was a foul. And so Maradona's response is, yeah, but look at the 1966 match that England won in the World Cup, and that was the ball did not go over the line into the
yeah,
goal. And
yeah,
so like okay, maybe this is jumping a little bit, but the planetary mirror, which is his integrated sign, it's almost like, the planetary mirror, he's showing that. So what's the difference? You're upset with me or
yeah.
whatever
You're
about
judging
this,
me,
but
but you
you
don't
did that. You did that yourselves. It's
exactly.
like look at
Yeah,
yourselves in the mirror, and I think he
yeah,
was really, really good at holding up the mirror to people, to be honest. He was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And well, also we can add to that that when you analyze the Maradona wage well and well his energies, you found that his integrated energy, it's the planetary mirror. So he always was somebody that shows the things that people like the most, and also the things that people wanted to hide, or because he has these two human faces, right? Really successful uh, into the field, in the football field, but outside he also had his troubles with fame, with some people that surround him, and well, I think he always shows him like somebody really authentic, and that sometimes it was annoying for the ones that judge him or the ones who didn't like him.
But one
Well,
thing I would really like to mention, if we can, is that, because going back again to that World Cup semi-final against England, it was
yeah,
so interesting that apart from it being actually his birthday kin, which it just makes you go, what? This is crazy. That's too much. That's such a huge synchronicity. The Mexico, where is obviously is where the Mayans and the Aztecs, civilization was, and the Mayans they have ball courts from hundreds of years ago in um, Mexico, where they would play a ball game, which was a rubber ball, which they'd hit with the hip to get into a ring that represents and the ball represented the sun, and the ring was like the I suppose the Milky Way to get into at the
Yeah,
solstice, yeah, and so it just seems such a combination of um, elements here, and they amongst other things, so that game was played to for the dark to defeat the light, for the sun to overcome the underworlds, the
yeah,
light to overcome the underworlds, and it was used apparently as an alternative to war. It was a game that was played to decide on things rather than turn to war to make decisions. So I mean, I really, really, it's not me actually. I think everybody um, felt that was when he won against England, that kind of leveled the playing field after the Malvinas, after what had happened. Okay,
yeah,
it didn't get rid of the whole issue, but to a certain extent, it was like, take that,
yeah,
it
yeah,
was a really
yeah.
amazing,
I
yeah.
wasn't born yet. I was in the process. I was
You're in the
just
process.
arriving to this life. Here in Argentina, there was a lot of people that took that game like certain justice for
Yeah, well, I
the
think, well, we've got another World Cup coming up, and this one's in the USA. Although
yeah,
that is part also of Maradona's history, is what happened in the USA World Cup. But um, it would be good if football could be used in this kind of a way, um, perhaps, to solve conflicts rather than maybe it became very money or big business, big
yeah,
money and
yeah,
everything, hasn't it? But we'll see what
yeah.
happens with that.
I was thinking that for these ancestors, the Guarani, the Mayans, uh, those who play this game, there was always relation with the divine, with the gods. So I guess that this spiritual way to live this game
Mm,
for especially for the South American people
mm,
explains a lot that today we have this passion about this sport.
yeah.
And well, but if we want to connect also, because like you said, this particular date, this goal of the century, and the Hannah pot was in the crystal eagle. We also need to say that this crystal eagle was part of his legacy, and not also in the part of the football, also in his family, because we have been analyzing to his family, his daughters and sons, about their energies. And we found that his two daughters, Dalma and Janina, that always was the most famous because he had,
5 children. 3 are daughters and 2 are sons, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Well, Dalma and Janina, that was the daughters that he was more close, the daughters of Diego and Claudia Villafañe, and had born on the dog wave spell, both in the same wave spell, so they share the same purpose, but the most crazy thing that we found, it was that Dharma, that is his first daughter, at least the first that he recognized officially, because Diego, it's the son that he recognized years after that. Dalma, that is planetary storm, she born in April 2, 1987. April 2, it's the day that we remember the soldiers that fight in Malvinas here in Argentina. Her Cicrono, it's Crystal Eagle, that is the king of his father. So
Yeah.
that was something that really surprised us because he always talked about his daughters, always. This is one of those things that when you analyze the energy of the people, surprise you because they are really connected.
Yeah, it's really beautiful that. I really liked it when you worked out the Sikrona there. And also, I wouldn't have known the date of her birthday, the significance
Yeah,
of the 2nd of April. I mean, I maybe
yeah,
should have, but but yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's really beautiful. And because they're now, the daughters are fighting for him today in the courts.
exactly.
And we really, wish that the best for them, actually, and that justice, whatever it will be served, for their dad. And but either
Yeah,
way, whatever happens in the court, to be honest, I think he's won. He won anyway, and he does have a beautiful. They have a beautiful plan for his to bury him, to build this.
yeah,
I think I don't know if it's called a mausoleum, but it's going to be quite a big monument to him, and kind of true to his integrated energy of the planetary mirror. What they've done is that they've sold, people have paid so that they will have their own photograph put
yeah,
in as part of that, and that will,
yeah,
like a little kind of mosaic that will produce an image of Maradona, but with the faces of all his fans, which is really,
yeah,
that's really sums him up quite well, doesn't it? So
yeah. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
really beautiful, yeah. So I mean, we could fill another half hour talking about him, but I suppose we're going to have to we're
Yeah,
going to have to
yeah.
try and, yeah,
Well,
we might have to leave
mention the
something.
things that we found because it's really interesting the dates and how they had this synchronity or coincidence with key moments in his life. Like, for example, well, we have mentioned before the planetary mirror that is his integrated energy. It's the synastry between his Birkin, the crystal eagle, and the spectral night. Well, this energy was available on the July 5, 1984. That was the day that he arrives to the Napoli, and he was welcomed by 75,000 fans. Is one of these moments that images are really famous because he's playing with the ball and hits the song "Life This Life." It's playing on the stadium, and well, like we said, the mirror is energy that shows you all the faces, all the aspects of the things and the person. In this case, it shows you at the perfection, like yeah, searching the perfection. So it's really interesting that this was this energy that was available this day.
Yeah, no, but when he did that warm up, the song, the Live is Life is very much a song that matches his character, but also, imagine you're on the other team and you see this guy doing that, I think you already know you're going to lose the game, when you see somebody who has such an affinity with the football.
Yeah,
Incredible and beautiful, really beautiful, really lovely
and
to watch that.
yeah,
Great
yeah,
moment,
and
great moment.
had that confidence on himself, knowing
Yeah.
what he's capable to do. So And
That's why
this
I
planet,
think whatever he did, whatever things, his excesses and the things that he felt guilty about in his life afterwards, and one thing and another, nobody else everybody else forgave him. Everybody forgave him. There was such a great love that and I just sort of thought, you mentioned that he arrives at Napoli. He also his so he leaves his home, which is difficult because he loves home and being with his, with his family, his mum and everything, to go to the big wide world. And then it's also on the planetary mirror, the 25th of June 1994, when he that marks his return home. And that was
yeah,
actually like, so he tested positive for ephedrine, a drug that actually, I don't know if it's really such a big stimulant that it would have made, is it a bit like taking an aspirin or whatever? He thinks that it was to get him and out of the World Cup. So otherwise, Argentina would have won, probably,
yeah,
again,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. But that is
Yeah.
the other face of this planetary mirror, that it cuts with a lot of things. And well, we have this face in the 1984 with his success and he arriving to the Napoli, and this other that
Mm,
uh, sent him home, and well,
yeah.
all this frustration that he felt, and well, of course, his fans felt.
Well,
So
that's probably the final thing I'll add, because I know that I can't say much more, but is that he's a great example, I think, of somebody of the seed wave spell. But he also is, and so a lot of people will be inspired for him forever, I think. But also the lesson to learn that you have to nurture the seed as well. And that's what the bit that he couldn't get that part, you know. And so the excesses, it's like putting too much water on or too much sun or this. He was excessive in everything,
yeah,
apparently. Not just, I
yeah,
know he's known for the drugs, but it was also food and anything he was
yeah,
excessive in. So that's also a message for people, because he was sad about that later in life. And he said, oh, actually, you know what I regret more? It's not even like the drugs, this, that, and the other. It was not spending more time with my wife and my children.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know,
of
he,
course.
he knew, but he didn't blame anybody else. And actually, but nobody blamed him either. Because he was so human. It's like,
Yeah,
and I think humans need that. We don't need perfect people to be our heroes. We need somebody who's amazing, but
yeah,
also like human, because then we don't feel, because we all make mistakes and we all can do this, that, and the other. So he was a great, in that respect. So yeah.
well, like you said, being someone that people inspire or admire, it's really difficult to handle the fame. And well, obviously, when you are surrounded with a lot of people, and these people brings you everything because you can reach everything. Everything is uh, on your foot.
It's in your grasp. Everything's
Yeah,
is, yeah.
yeah.
Everything.
Well, it's really difficult to handle, especially like you said, um, far away from your family and being
And he
young,
was
and
young. I mean, he had no
was really
experience of
young.
life.
And when you talk about this success and all the stimulate that he
Yeah.
received, I was looking at the serpent that is his challenge, but not only in his oracle, also in his wave spell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to be capable of adapt to the things that appear in your life, but also you need to try to live with passion without cross the limit. And
Yeah.
so, well, I guess he tried to do the best, like everybody. And here in Argentina, there are a lot of people that describe him like the most human of the heroes or the most human of the gods, because there's a lot of people that call him God.
Yeah.
So, what do you say, Carol? Should we add something else, or do you think that
Well. I think we've covered a lot. I think also what I'll just add is I think World Bridger, if it's occult and electric, wouldn't that be I think that draws energy from the ancestral line on the one
Yeah,
hand. But on the other hand, it was also about you can go to run risks and go to extremes. So I think he really, I mean, that was such a part of him. But,
yeah,
it's, yeah, such a nice person underneath in his heart
yeah,
and everything,
yeah,
really lovely,
yeah.
self-deprecating and everything, just so nice. His
So
energy.
he left his seeds around the world, so he will always be a great inspiration for footballers. And here in Argentina, also, it's a great inspiration because he never forgot the place that he
Came
born,
from. I never
he
know.
came from.
Well, I
So
think you have big events coming up. He'll be remembered somehow at the World Cup, I'm sure, but
yeah,
also when the mausoleum, when his body is moved, I think there's going to be that's going to be a huge event.
yeah, yeah,
Like many
okay,
people like him, even when they pass away, they get bigger, actually. I think he will,
yes,
yeah, I think somehow
yeah,
that his light will shine always
okay,
bigger and
okay.
brighter. So.
Well, like we said at the beginning, please let your votes, your choice in comments so we can analyze the next character for our next episode. And also leave your comments if you like this group.
Yeah, and even just put a little symbol if you love Maradona. Do you
Okay,
like
great.
Maradona? Or do you love Maradona? Just put
Okay.
a little
Yeah, yeah.
an Argentinian flag or an English one. I'm joking.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, and thank you for listening to us. And well, we will share another episode for the next Truder King with Carol. And well, thank you a lot for share with us this analyze. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks very much, and everybody have a good end of the seed wave spell, and yeah, new beginnings.
Thank you a lot. Bye.